Hello and welcome to part 4 of the lesson on drop chords on the guitar. If this is the first part that you are seeing, make sure to go back and watch parts 1, 2, and 3. In part 1, I kind of explained the fundamentals, and those included the difference between a closed voicing and an open voicing. In part 2, I proceeded to demonstrate drop 2 chords, how we came up with those. Part 3. And then subsequently, I inverted those chords. In part 3, I was able to take some of those chords and move them up and down the neck and horizontally and vertically, because they can be played on, drop 2 chords can be played on groups of 4 adjacent strings on the guitar. So that you got the bottom 4 strings, middle 4 strings, and top 4 strings. And I also proceeded to show how, with a little extra work, you can apply this to chords that are not all major 7. It can be minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and all kinds of other chords that you can play. The principle applies exactly. What I'm going to do in this lesson is kind of expand on what we've done. Even though what we've done so far in drop 2 should provide you a lifetime of study, I still work on these chords. But I will now proceed to demonstrate how this concept can be applied to dropping other notes. Namely, in previous lessons, we have dropped the second note from the top, creating a drop 2 chord. But what about dropping other notes? What about dropping the third note? So I'm not going to go through the whole process of dropping. We've done that previously, but I'll simply go ahead and demonstrate what these voicings sound like. So we have come to the conclusion that this is a C major 7 drop 2 played on the middle 4 strings. And just to show you how we got there briefly, we started with this closed voicing. We dropped the G an octave here. We came up with this voicing. We proceeded to invert it on the bottom 4 strings until we reached this root position, that is to say the one that has the C in the bass. And I transferred it, copied it note for note over here to this very familiar chord shape. So we have already demonstrated this is an open voicing because it has openings in it of chord notes that can be played but which we are not, namely this C note that sits between the C and G that could be played but we are not. Similarly, this C note is sitting between this B and E. It could be played but we are not. That's why this is an open voicing, specifically a drop 2 voicing. So what I'm going to do right now is going to kind of skip on the process of how we got there and simply demonstrate the sounds. What we have seen as a characteristic of drop 2 voicings that they can always be played on 4 adjacent strings, whether the bottom 4 strings, middle 4, top 4, and no matter how much you invert them, they can always be played on 4 adjacent strings. Other drop chords, drop 3, for example, has a different characteristic. So I'm going to demonstrate right now drop 3 in the same position. It looks like this. Just to look at it, and by the way, I should mention right now, make sure to look in the information below where a PDF is available to purchase for $5. All the chord shapes in all 4 of these lessons, all 4 parts of this lesson are demonstrated in a PDF that I have available. So don't worry about zooming in the screen or anything like that, because these chords will be illustrated in the PDF. But anyway, if just to look at the screen, they almost look the same. In fact, if I just laid my fingers in the left hand on all of these notes, you could pick out the 2 voicings with your right hand. Here is the drop 2 portion of it, C, G, B, and E. And here's the drop 3 portion of it, C, B, E, and G. So it's hard to see on the screen, so check out the PDF. But musically speaking, it's a very different voicing. The notes are spaced differently, and it has a different note on top. Here we have the E on top, here we have the G on top. So to finger it specifically, this is a drop 2, and this is a drop 3. One nice character, you might recognize it from here. Same thing exactly. If you know this shape, that is a drop 3. And similarly, it can be inverted just like the drop 2 chords. up, and of course down as well. And of course, as we've done before, we can change the characteristic of the chord. Here's your C major 7 sharp 5, even a 13 instead of the 5, flat 5, 7, 7 sharp 5, 7 flat 5. All these can be derived from this concept that we just did, just by changing one or two notes in the chord to change its color. Back to C major 7 and drop. So that was drop 3 with some of its inversions. Now I said that we can drop more than one note. We can drop the 2 and the 4. And again, without going through the process, just to show you what it sounds like. This is a drop 2 and 4. Now this drop 2 and 4 chord can also be inverted. All of these can be inverted. Once again, refer to my lesson about inverting chords. If we invert this chord, we're going to come up, this note is going to move here, this one here, and these two here. We get this voicing. This set of chords is characterized by playing 2 notes, having a gap string, and then 2 more notes. And similarly, this can be played on strings 5, 4, 2 and 1, or strings 6, 5, 4 and 3. Drop 2 and 3 will look like this. A very sweet sounding voicing that is characterized by having 3 notes together on string, in this case on strings 5, 4, and 3, then a gap string, and then a note on the first string. And of course, this can be inverted and played on different groups of strings, but that goes beyond where I wanted to go in terms of the concept of drop chords. And this concludes our lesson about drop chords. We have mostly discussed drop 2 chords, but the principle can be applied to drop 3 chords, drop 2 and 3, as well as drop 2 and 4. In the future, I will do additional lessons that expand on those other drop chords, and I will also do a lesson on how to expand on the characteristic of these chords. In other words, not playing only major 7 chords, but other types of chords, and how to invert them all.